Okay, we're going to take a look at this SLC 500 rack and point out a few things. So this is a 4-slot rack, and so the CPO goes into the 0 slot, and then 1, and then 2, and then 3. So 0, 1, 2, 3, total of 4 slots, okay? So we talked about the power supply. So inside here is the power supply. This particular one takes AC in, and then it produces DC voltage. Some are DC and produce DC voltage. So it says power out right here is 24 volts DC. Okay, so it looks like I have 2 terminals here that are DC, and what I'm using this for is I am using this to source and sync the input module here. Okay, but you don't want to do that. You want to use, typically you want to have an external power supply that's separate of the CPU that you would source and sync the modules here, okay? But what this power supply is doing is it's providing DC voltage for the entire rack for the back plane, and that's what these modules plug into, okay? And so that voltage is probably about 5 volts DC on the back, so it's producing 24 volts and 5 volts DC off of 120 volts in, okay? Wanted to point out that on the cards here, on the inside of them, they list what the catalog number is for this. For example, this is a 1746 OB16, which if you look, it's a DC sourcing output module, okay? So that's a way to identify quickly, you know, what the module is. But you got to be aware that some of them, the stickers come off, and there's no number in there, so you're not sure what it is, or else you can see that these come off of here. Oh, hang on a second. Pretty easily. And then people like to play games, and they'll click this one in here and this one in here, and pretty soon you won't know what you are. So if you're not sure what the module is, what you do is there's a clip here at the top and a clip here at the bottom, and you push down on those. I'm going to be able to do it with one hand because I already got it out, but you need 2 hands to pull it out. And then on the inside of the module there's where you're going to see 1746 OB16, and then it's going to tell you the series and some other information about it, okay? So that's where you're going to get a lot of information about what the output ratings and everything are. We'll go into this quite a bit more, okay? But let's take a further look at this. Here's the processor. This one is a 502 processor, and this one that is not an Ethernet connection. That's a RJ45, but it is a serial connection, okay? But if we take a look at this input module, what I want to show you is the purposes of the IL. So the couple of purposes are for indication, okay? So what I have right here is I have a little bit of a push button, and when I push the button, I'm pushing the button, you see the light coming on there? So that's the first step, is these modules are great for indicating what's coming on or off. The input modules are for termination. So in this case, I landed my signal that went from my push button into here, and you got the screws here to make terminations and to land your sensors, in this case into an input module. On an output module, for example, here you would land outputs into these modules, okay? It's good for isolation. So what that means is that this is a DC sync input module. It's going to use transistors to isolate the field devices that are actually wired into here, and then the CPU that's very expensive. So for some reason, you know, pushing a button's not too dramatic, but if I had some device over here that got shorted, or somehow these wires right here got a big hit of voltage or a big hit of current, well then those wires, those are the things that are wired back into the module here. So if this got hit with a big high current or a big high module, what that would do is it would fry the solid state device that's associated with input 1 right there, and that input 1 might get fused on, and then we can no longer use that. But that would not completely burn out and fry my expensive CPU and my expensive power supply. So isolation isolates the field devices from the computer part of this, okay? And then so the other thing that it does is it does conversion. So this takes this in, and the light comes on there when I push the button. And then what does that mean? Well, it means that there's an input on, but somehow that needs to get converted to zeros and ones that then gets plugged into your ladder logic. Because remember, we learned our ladder logic scan was check the inputs, check the logic, and then update the outputs. So what this does is the CPU then takes the conversion from here and does all the math on the zeros and ones and gives us the outcome that we want. So that's a quick overview of SLC 500 4-slot rack.